Ine, you ask us to look closely at what Russia is doing and to tell what they are doing. So what do you see them doing?
I think one of the most important things about telling what Russia is doing is to make people aware that they are actually using energy yet again as a tool in this war. And it, of course, has two effects right now. One is directly in Ukraine, where they are effectively trying to use the winter to make it as uninhabitable as possible for the Ukrainians. They are bombing civilian infrastructure, energy supplies, but they're also using this as a very efficient and I would say cheap tool against the West, where they are trying to make as much havoc as possible, as much unrest as possible, and to polarize and to divide countries and to divide the population so that you come in a situation where you are undermining the authorities and trying by that to make authorities back away from sanctions and also to lower the resources spent on Ukraine.
How do they do this in practice?
Well, they do it in many ways. I mean, in Ukraine right now, they are effectively bombing everything of civilian infrastructure. But in Europe, they do it in several ways. They are, of course, using influence operations widely, as they've always done. But they've just stepped up their tactics right now. And they are effectively trying to tell people that their governments are not caring for them. Vladimir Putin was on radio here just a month and a half ago saying that he would be more than happy to flow gas through the part of Nord Stream 2 that is still working. And he could not understand why Western governments would not receive this cheap gas and by that make the cost of living crisis a little less heavy to carry for the populations. So they're using all of the tactics they have, and influence operations is of course very important as a part of this, and also to create as much uncertainty and unrest as possible. And what they're doing in Ukraine right now is of course also something that eventually will lead to more refugees in Europe, because people have to flee from a winter that is just devastating. And again, that could of course cause more unrest in Europe as well. So this is a very clear tactic, and unless we are talking openly about it, it's also very difficult to build resistance against it.
Take Nord Stream. You were quite clear you think Russia was behind that.
Well, all indications are both that this was a sabotage attack, it was no accident, and of course Russia has an interest in this because they are effectively using energy as a tool, and what they could convey by sabotaging and using the gas pipelines as a target was of course to underline how dependent Europe is of Russian gas. And this is, of course, also a part of the narrative that Russian media outlets and those who are close to the regime are using at the moment. They've been, in the beginning, they tweeted a lot about the denazification, so-called, of Ukraine that was necessary with this so-called special operation. And then they've turned to the European dependency on Russian energy. And of course, the tool here, again, is a hybrid one, and they're using it for all it's worth. And it's cheap, and it's unfortunately quite effective in many places.